Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with part 4 of my dreams to connect Asia and Africa together through Egypt. Um, I've been having quite a rough day because I had quite a bad nightmare and woke up obviously really stressed, and I didn't manage to actually get out of bed till about. I kept going back to sleep, like waking up at, I can't remember what time, at 8 o'clock or something like that, or even earlier than that, and then going back to sleep over and over again and I didn't get out of bed till about 12 o'clock, so that was a bit of a nightmare. And also Celtic have dropped a couple of points in the league, in the Scottish League, drawing 1-1. I mean, I suppose at least we didn't lose, but it is a bit disappointing. I was hoping that Celtic would win and win comfortably. And also, even before that, I made a video, a live stream on my Facebook, and it just the videos kept interrupting. I don't know if it was my internet connection. It seemed to be my internet connection, but then for some reason Facebook just or whatever happened, it just whether it was my internet connection or whether it was Facebook, it just ended my live stream. So I've had a bit of a stressful day, but I mean, at least Celtic didn't lose the game, and I'm still actually 13 points clear at the moment. And hopefully Aberdeen can do us a favour tomorrow, all being well, God willing and Godspeed. But anyway, yeah, sorry, going a bit off topic. But yeah, for this video, for part 4, getting to the point, hopefully I thought I would cover specifically and focus on specifically neurodiversity and how I hope for people across Asia and Africa to learn about neurodiversity. I think I briefly covered it in part 3, but I hope to specifically focus on that as much as I can. And as much as I would love for Asia and Africa to benefit from this video and these videos, and for them to work together on collaborative projects in things like business, STEM, education, training, trade, and all sorts of things I talked about, like filmmakers, producers, directors, different industries, the modeling industry or whatever, different industries from Africa and Asia, and the music industry and whatnot from Africa and Asia, and again different businesses from Asia and Africa to network together as much as possible, and Egypt to invite individuals, businesses, entrepreneurs, and even entire nations, governments, politicians, and whatnot to come to Egypt, like political leaders, basically, and delegates and whatnot, diplomats and whatnot from across Asia and Africa. Again, in this specific one, I wish to focus on neurodiversity as much as possible, and some of the things I've read and heard about neurodiversity, and how I hope for people across Asia and Africa to find out about neurodiversity and the positives and negatives of neurodiversity. So yeah, there are some negatives, but saving the best till last. Hopefully they'll find out there's some positives as well. So here goes. So number 31. There is something on Google which I hope for people from across Africa and Asia to Google, and I might include it in the comment section. But it is basically an article. I didn't read all of it, but I have read quite a bit of it, and it talks about the case for investing in dyslexia specifically. But I think that could be applied to neurodiversity generally. Some of the things could be applied to other neurodiverse groups like people with A.D.H.D and autism, as I mentioned what neurodiversity is before, special needs, learning disabilities, whatever you want to call it. I think that there are strengths that autistic and A.D.H.D and dyspraxic even people have, and I'd love to hear, read in the comments from people from neurodiverse backgrounds from around the world, not just Africa and Asia, but just as much so, I suppose, outside of Africa and Asia, like in Europe, in America, including in the UK, here in the UK or elsewhere, talking about what you've achieved and that sort of thing. And the research has already been done quite a lot. There's a lot of lists of famous neurodiverse people, and I hope for people across Asia and Africa to both Africa and Asia to learn about such. And again, Egypt could host such events. Number 32, there could also be events. Come to think of it, I think my initial idea was actually going to be, I think I've just remembered it now, that it was going to be for events that I hope Egypt will well, I suppose that was what the other videos were about. But yeah, maybe they could invite millionaires and billionaires generally, as well as those from neurodiverse backgrounds, but like dyslexic billionaires, dyslexic business leaders, politicians, as well as, like I say, autistic and ADHD, successful people with dyslexia and ADHD, from around the world to come to Egypt and to talk to African and Asian leaders and other people from Africa and Asia, and also I'll say policy and decision makers, and also remembering my train of thought. Sorry, they could talk about their successes and be invited to and other countries, as well, across Asia and Africa. That's what I was going to say. But Egypt, especially, hosting most of those events, as it's the only transcontinental country, as I often mention. Hence the reason why I think it would be symbolically great for Egypt to connect Asia and Africa together and, like I say, connect their projects and help them to support each other, encourage them to support each other and make peace and support each other as much as possible generally. Number 33, again, people with individuals, businesses and organizations which support learning disabilities as well. Individuals with learning disabilities or individuals who support learning disabilities, businesses and individuals, businesses from people, made by people with learning disabilities or neurodiverse conditions or special needs or whatever you want to call it, and also those who support such, and also families of people with learning disabilities and stuff like that. But again, especially individuals who have conditions, like people like Richard Branson, people like that. I think it'd be great to see them go to Egypt and other parts of Asia and Africa and maybe set up their own academies to train Asians and Africans with dyslexia or other connected or related conditions to support, to help them to set up their own businesses and things like that. Number 34, also the value of dyslexia report. I dreamed that Made-By-Dyslexia, which made that report, as well as the Yale, as well as the Dyslexic Advantage, will host the events that they've hosted in the UK and elsewhere in and around and across Africa and Asia, and especially in Egypt again, and bringing in people from those countries, and also organisations like the Dyslexia Organisation of Kenya, DOK, the school I support at the moment, Rare Gem, and the Dyslexia Association of Singapore, DAS, and similar ones in India and other parts of Asia. I often say the main countries I'd love to support are Malaysia, India, Indonesia, South Africa, and Singapore. But also, as I say, all possible organisations which support learning disabled people to educate people on what neurodiversity is, and that kind of thing. I think that was number 34. Number 35. So I hope my main goal for this would be for people across Asia and Africa to learn about both the weaknesses and also the strengths of learning disabilities and how learning disabled people can actually benefit Africa and Asia. Like the case for investing in Dyslexics talked about how, I know I briefly touched on this before, but how, I probably could touch on it in a bit more detail, but how, in a bit too much detail, I know I do waffle, but so please forgive me for that, but how dyslexic people set up more businesses and also hire more people generally in their businesses respectively, because they have to cover for they have to hire people who can do the reading or writing for them, which will solve a problem facing African and Asian or all nations really, which is low employment rates or high levels of unemployment, in other words. So yeah, they could help with that by saying if a dyslexic person sets up a business, even if they only set one business, they normally hire more people to do the reading or writing and things like that. And also they also set up more than one business. And number 36, I'd also love for, as a fan of Italian football and Celtic, as I often say, I would love for neurodiverse people to showcase what we can do for those background for Italian football and Celtic as well. But this is that's a separate sort of project. But as part of this project, I also hope we'll showcase what we can do for developing countries through our skills and talents. Not my own personal ones, but I haven't really achieved much success personally, to be honest. But there are successful entrepreneurs with learning disabilities like dyslexia and ADHD, and even autism, I'm sure. And there are strengths people with autism have, and many organisations are trying to train up and hire autistic people, especially in areas like tech, or probably even STEM generally, or certainly most of those areas. Number 37. So I suppose the goal would be to get together, and perhaps I should have started with this really in hindsight, but to get together Made-By-Dyslexia, Dyslexic Advantage, and all other possible organisations which support dyslexic people, but not just dyslexic people and groups, but also other neurodiverse groups. So, for instance, ADHD and other connected conditions. So people who believe that autistic and ADHD people and Aspergers and Dyslexics have a lot to offer, and hopefully can help developing countries to solve their problems and tackle poverty through our unique abilities, generally speaking. And again, I don't have much of them myself, but I suppose I do think outside the box. But many people with learning disabilities have done well, and I suppose it affects us in different ways. And I think that's another thing it would be good for people across Asia and Africa, especially, to know. Number 38. So I hope those organisations come together and, I suppose, host events and summits, inviting individuals with dyslexia as well as their organisations and dyslexic groups and that kind of thing to Asian and African nations, especially Egypt, I'll say. And again, having leaders and others from across Asia and Africa learning about neurodiverse conditions and dispelling any myths. And like, say, for instance, if they see someone with a learning disability who's not doing very well academically, hopefully they'll learn that we can be good in other areas. Number 39, as ever, I would love to read your own suggestions and ideas and views and things like that. Number 40, I really hope on that note as well to look into ways that those groups could how those groups like Made-By-Dyslexia and others could come together, and how to contact those groups. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, how to contact those groups so they can come together, and that kind of thing. Anywho, I am out. Peace and love.